Hello, mindful friends. Today we're going to be talking about the joy of simplicity. I think this is why I love mindfulness so much, is that it really brings everything back down to as simple as it can be. And that's what Thich Nhat Hanh did with the teachings. And even though he came from this Zen Buddhist tradition, he really focused on breaking it down to the very, very basics, of not focusing on all the complications of the doctrine and what this means, and the complication in the words and all their definitions. And he really just broke it down into what are the very basics of making this a very simple and accessible practice for everybody. And that you don't have to be a big theologian to understand things or dive deep into all the concepts. It's just take these very simple practices, practice them, deepen those in everything that you do, and that's where you receive the fruits and the joy of the practice. And I love that, and I see that even out in everyday life, and I think that's why I love camping so very much, is because it reminds me of the joy of simplicity, that you bring everything back to the very basics of what you could need. You have the very minimum of your comforts, and yet you're so happy because when you're not distracted by all these things in your life and the extravagance of it and the busyness of it, and you're out there in the wilderness with just your little camp chair and your little camp table and your fire, that simplicity leaves room for you to appreciate what's present. It leaves room for you to be fully there in the moment, and instead of staring at your gadgets and all the busyness and chaos, you're looking up into the night sky and seeing all these amazing stars and how many stars you can see, and you're looking at them and remembering what their names are, what that one is, or you're curious about it. And we always like to call it, fire television, is that you watch the flames flicker and move and dance. And then the simplicity of that, when you engage in it, really brings you the purest form of joy. And I think we lose that a little bit in our everyday lives because we're taught in kind of the consumer mentality that our happiness, our joy comes from more. So the more that I have, the more complex things are, the more events I go to, the more grandiose that they are, the bigger my vacations, the happier that I'll be. But it's quite the opposite, in fact, because when we're chasing that complexity and we keep just filling space, filling time, filling our homes, all of those things distract us from what I was talking about. That's that joy in camping. They distract us from the very basic pleasures of life, from that mindful presence of the environment, the life that's around you. They distract you from looking out the window and seeing the bird building its nest, or when the egg finally hatches and you get to see the little bird's baby come out. And that's real joy, but we're so distracted looking at all of our things and all of our busyness that we don't really get to engage in the joy of simplicity. So that's why mindfulness is so beautiful to me, because its whole purpose is to bring us back to those basics of simplicity? Can you just be present for what you have in this moment, for what you're experiencing in this moment? And, like I was saying, camping kind of forces you to do that because your distractions are gone. Most of the time, well, all the time, we have no television. Most of the time, we have no cell service, which is what we got to experience this weekend. So your distractions are very minimal. And then it kind of pushes you into being fully present in the moment. But that's what mindfulness is asking us to do at each and every moment. Can you turn your focus away from all those things that distract you, from the gadgets and the wanting more, the desires and the busyness? And can you focus on the little joys right in front of you? That's like the mindfulness practice of the 5 senses, which I teach in most of my intro sessions, is paying attention. What are you feeling right now? Just in the body. What are you hearing right now? What are you smelling? What are you seeing? And knowing that those senses are life. That is our experience of life. And the more we engage with them and let them in and enjoy them and appreciate them, that's us savoring the gifts of life, and that it can be that simple. It can really be that simple. And that's why, even when we do mindfulness of the breath, just enjoying your breath, just let yourself breathe. As we're always trying to cling to more and solve something and fix something. But when we're mindful of the breath, we're bringing it back to that simplicity. Just breathing in, we're just breathing out. And as we do so, we appreciate what it feels like just to breathe. And we're kind of letting go of the need to fix the past and move to the future. And we're seeing this effect of the breath that reminds us this moment is a gift. This life-giving force of the breath is a gift, and it's allowing you to experience this life. And so when I get to go, remove myself, I think that's why I find it so lovely and healing to go camping, because we were talking about that, does put you in a little bit of discomfort, right? You're out there and you don't have all your amenities, you don't have the couch, you can't just flip on the television. You're a little bit uncomfortable, but then you appreciate so much more. Like when I can warm the water in the morning and wash my face with warm water from the camp stove, it's like, wow, this feeling of warmth instead of like ice cold water, and I appreciate that so much. And you're sleeping on the ground, and then you come back home, and it's like you are amazed at the resources and comforts you have in your house. Warm running water that comes from my sink. Wow! Like a feather duvet on my freshly cleaned sheets. Wow! And that's what camping does. It helps us appreciate the simple things in our life that we normally just overlook and get no joy from while we're chasing other things. But the same thing camping does, that's what mindfulness asks you to do all the time. When you turn on the sink, notice what a gift that is. I also traveled to a lot of third world countries, and you don't get that. You wash with a bottle of water or a bucket and it's cold. And you don't have the shampoo shelf right next to you and the hot water running. So mindfulness asks you to be aware of that all the time, not just because you just went camping, but notice the gifts of comfort you have in your life. The car that you can drive, the stove that just turns right on, your faucet that runs, the roof over your head. Be mindful of the simple gifts of life. And when you really are, when you really recognize the miracle that all these things are, you are happy so much more of the time. You engage with the joy of life so much more. Or instead, if you're only thinking happiness comes from the big things and getting things and when you're important and you have status, you're never happy because you're always chasing. But if you are mindful and you are happy and find the miracle of life in all the little things, you engage with that true mindful joy of just being alive and present. So I invite you this week, engage mindfully in your life, enjoy the little things, let that happiness in. And if you want to practice this in group settings, you can do group classes or individual coaching, finding that at newleafmindfulness.com. You can also find my meditations on YouTube and Insight Timer. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I hope to see you all very soon.